Hello, David.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start. George will join us later. First thing to do is stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everybody. I keep you at work, right? Next on the agenda is board calendar, public requests, records summary. Anybody got it? We start with the board annual calendar. Is there any questions or concerns?
Not questions really. Well, maybe, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to kind of bring it up, but during our board retreat, when we were discussing the annual calendar, there was a lot of information that we didn't get to. So we need to get our follow-up retreat on the books and in motion. And so I just decided to bring it up here because it affects the calendar. And
That is correct.
we can get that scheduled. If we can agree to a date and a time frame so that Bonnie can get that scheduled with Tony and anybody else who needs to be involved. I just feel like
we're going to try to do this in October.
I think sooner the better, because I feel like the way we've been going with all of the topics we have to discuss and kind of the gravity of them all, that if we don't finish it up in this next meeting, we might need to schedule another one, and we could be doing that for heaven only knows how long, which also brings me to another point that Kathy had brought up previously, and that is that if we need to have more board work sessions in a month, I would like to kind of suggest that everybody be open to that process as well. Especially as we get into talking about working to get a new superintendent and all of the other things to discuss. So
thanks for bringing it up, Melissa. I totally agree with both of those because I want us to be, we have a lot to tackle, and I want us to be ready to go in June when we have to say adios to our teammate there in the center. So I think that there's a lot of things that we need to take care of, or at least be better informed about before we start down that path.
Okay, so we need to pick some dates. I know Carrie said she's available the 29th. I am not. I'm gone. I'm actually gone that 29th, 28th to the 31st. I'll be out of town again.
Tuesday nights are good too for me.
Tuesdays are fine for me.
any Tuesday would work for me as well.
So what about, I know we haven't heard from George yet, either the 6th or the 13th?
We have a meeting with the task force on the 6th.
Yeah,
so what about
13th?
13th open for everybody?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, go Judge. Yeah, so why don't we just schedule it for the 13th?
Does that work for staff?
We'll make it work.
I appreciate that.
And how about we pencil in one before I leave would be the 27th of October. Any objections?
Nope.
No, none.
Okay, that way we'll have two.
Two retreats or work session or what?
Two retreats. We can do retreats.
Okay.
So we look at the 13th and the 27th.
That works. Yeah, we have enough. We have enough to talk about for 2 meetings.
Oh, definitely we do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you. Is that 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay.
6 o'clock work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Staff?
Yes, it'll be fine.
Thanks, you
All right.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Any other-
you.
Any other questions on the board calendar? I know George just got in. You got any questions, George, on the board annual calendar?
Obviously, I don't have questions on the calendar since I almost missed this meeting entirely.
All righty.
And good job, Melissa.
How about the public requests? Summary spreadsheet. Any questions? I see we have one on the 4th. I found out it was on the 14th. Any questions?
Nope. I'm just excited we have one.
I know. I was like, wow, that's great. Just one. Woo. I'm happy about that one.
Yeah.
If not, we're going to move on to the first read of the board policies. Basically, it's the first read. You will get a chance to go over this again. If you have any specific questions, give us the policy number and what section that we could follow you.
I have a very generic and general question about this process. When I first opened it, I'm like, oh Lord, I don't know if I'm going to get to read all those before the meeting. But can you just confirm that when I'm looking at these and they say markups, that means that there's been a change to an existing document, and that if it's new, it is indeed brand new. We've never seen it before. There's something that's happened in RCWs or whatever that's establishing that. And then if it's retired, that means we're taking it out of the rotation completely and we no longer have those documents. Okay.
That is
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure my mind was right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. I had one on 3205P, our procedure for sexual harassments of students prohibited, the markup. My question, it's more of a question. I was curious who our Title IV coordinator was and have they received the training required for this procedure, or will that need to occur before the policy is implemented?
Title IX, you're.
I'm sorry, Title IX. Yes.
So that's me, and I have received training. I'm also in the process of reading the ongoing guidance because of the new federal regulations and expectations.
Mhm.
It's pretty, there's some major changes, particularly when it
Yeah.
comes to investigations. And there is an emphasis on taking this seriously, obviously. And so it's going to be a continual learning process as more and more guidance comes out.
Okay, thank you. It looks like there's high potential for us to miss a step and create an issue. So I just want to make sure that we're on top of it and that you do have the training, because once we implement this policy, we need to execute it to the letter. And I want to make sure we're able to do that.
You're absolutely right. And the risk of liability is there.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
being mindful of the steps that we have to take, the timelines and the process and sequence is very, very important.
Yeah, okay.
So thanks for recognizing that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's a big responsibility.
And feel free if you got questions because it takes me a while to go through all these policies, to shoot it to Bonnie so we can get it answered, because I'm sure you can't get all the questions right now. But as soon as the question come up, send it to Bonnie. Let's get so they can research it and get the answers to us as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Hey, when we have one that's retired, what does that mean? Does that mean we no longer do that? That's no longer a policy? Has it been replaced?
George, the policy has been revised to the point where it has been replaced.
Okay. And the only reason I ask is it's kind of one of those shocking title ones regarding student sex and kidnapping offenders.
Mhm.
And it just says retired. And so what has it been replaced by?
I can't answer that question at this moment, but we can get back to the board to answer that question.
Maybe it'd be a good idea once they retire a policy, you can reference the new policy. This policy retired, but replaced with policy number, blah, blah, blah. So he would know, anybody would know they retired this one, but it's referenced to this policy.
I was just going to suggest the same thing, Stanley. So thank you for that.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Any other questions?
If I can interject,
Sure.
so 3143 BP Board Policy and Procedure are new, and they replace both 3144 Board Policy and Procedure as well as 4314 Board Policy and Procedure. So those that are being retired were replaced by 3143 Board Policy and Procedure.
Yeah, and there's a note down in the executive content explaining that. Thank you, Bonnie.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bonnie.
You're welcome.
My apologies for not even seeing that in the
I
bottom.
know, I didn't catch it. You don't go all the way down.
I miss it too. I don't scroll down far enough.
That's all right. We don't scroll down to that part. Thank you, Bonnie. It's taking care of us. Any other questions? So now we're going to move on to reports, athletic/ASB funding. Mr. Raff and Marcy Bannon.
Yes, before they begin, I'd like to just add that this presentation tonight is a result of the interest the board has and shared with me at the retreat in late August. There's a whole host of topics that will be presented in the board work sessions throughout the year, and this surfaced for the month of October. And so it's timely, it's wonderful. Unfortunately, we don't have our robust athletics and activities programs operating at this time, but this community absolutely has a great following of the middle school and high school athletics and activities. And so we have a group of professionals here that can shed light on the details surrounding our program offerings. And I'm just very pleased to welcome Steve Rabb, Marcy Bannon, Jessica Robbins, Sarah Amon, Karen Buchholz, and Marty Parkhurst this evening. So welcome, everyone. Look forward to your conversation with the board. Steve?
Yep. Thank you, Tony. So what smart administrators figure out over time is when you have questions that you want answered smartly and intellectually, sometimes you need a bigger brain. And so therefore, I've invited 4 people that have a composite bigger brain than I've got on these subjects. And the other piece of this, though, too, is one of the things that Tony's been talking to us about is really kind of engaging our board with our teachers when we have the opportunity to do it. I know you guys, every time we've had teachers come forward and other staff members come forward, you just really appreciate hearing their voices. And I just had this experience when I opened up and I saw the teachers that were on the page. And normally we don't get that every week, but it was just so refreshing for me to see our staff here with us tonight. And it's really fun to have them come and join us. Been a long day for them. They've been busy all day teaching kids. So this is a little bit more screen time for them, but they were all eager and willing to come and interact with you on these 2 issues. So my appreciation to them. And so the most preparation I've done is to be ready to introduce them. So how smart is that administratively? So I'd like to start with ASB, and representing ASB is going to be Jessica Robbins from Orting Middle School and Sarah Ammons. I presented the 2 key questions that the board asked, so they'll speak to those questions, and then we'd like to have the board interact with them on any other issues that come up, and then have a chance to talk with them. The 2 questions that were put forward were how are funds allocated and prioritized, and who makes those decisions? And then the other question was how many are involved in prioritizing ASB funding? So Jessica and Sarah, I'll turn the mic over to you and let you guys explain that.
You go first, Sarah.
Oh, thanks. You're so kind. My gosh, gracious. Okay, so hi, I'm Sarah Alman. I'm obviously at Ording High School. If I'm not hoping I'm doing things correctly with ASB, I'm teaching English. Hoping I'm doing that correctly. So sometimes it's just straight across the board, humble, right? These were interesting questions for me to answer. I can give you kind of like the generic overall concept, right? So how are funds allocated and prioritized and who makes the decisions? In general, funds are allocated in a variety of ways, right? We've got funds that are for clubs and they're available through request. The club needs to complete a budget form just as everybody else does. If it's in the middle of the year, and so it wasn't like a prearranged allocation, there's a process that they go through. It's basically a form that we ask the students to work with their advisor on, where they're completing what the need is for. Is it meeting the CARS requirements of, is it cultural, athletic, recreational, social, so that it complies with that, with the overall WASPO laws. And then we ask for the student to come to an ASB meeting where they will present that, because we also look at it as the opportunity for the students to then be able to practice that skill of speaking and explaining and that whole process. Prioritizing. Okay, so here's where it gets good. Until this year, and with my only 1 year prior experience with ASB, so there's also my defense, right? To my knowledge, the way that it works, there's not a system in place in terms of prioritizing. From what I've experienced is ASB does their best to really kind of honor everybody's requests. And so rather than deciding who deserves what more, or creating that like a kind of a ranking of why somebody should get it over somebody else, ASB really embraces this idea that the money from ASB or for ASB is to give back to those students so that they can do the most with their clubs, with their organizations, with whatever that activity is. And so if you start to create that system where you're saying, we honor or we value this club or this practice more than the other, you're already creating dissension in the groups. And so, we've discussed this, that 1 year that I've done this idea that you have to be sure to recognize and honor everybody wholly, rather than creating that separation. In terms of who makes the decisions, that's also kind of there's a gamut of answers for that, right? So if it's something mid-year, so drama needs money for scripts, for costume, for scenery, that would go directly to the ASB executive board. So it goes to our executive board members, which this year is now different as well. After a lot of debate and discussion, it was this idea that we would really like to see that it's not just those seniors that are representing executive board, because if executive board is making the decisions for the school as a whole, then there should be representation from the school as the whole, right? So now we have 10, 11, and 12th grade that operate on that executive board to make those decisions. So it goes through them, plus me, plus our administrators, and then they go on to basically the all-powerful, all-knowing genius of the world. And Marcy always gives it that look over at the end to make sure that we haven't done something. Don't you shake your head. It's so true. So basically, if Marcy wasn't here, I'd be crying all the time. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, so I don't know if you want me to break this up by answering one question and then letting Jessica go, and then we go back to the other questions. So you tell me what's best. I'll just keep talking otherwise, and it's awkward.
Yeah, let's so as you're talking about Ording High School's process, Jess, why don't you chime in and talk about what's similar and potentially different for Ording Middle School?
Yeah, so middle schoolers are not high schoolers. They need a lot more support and a lot more scaffolding than the independent high schoolers necessarily need. A senior is not a sixth grader. There's size-wise alone. I mean, it's not the same.
Yeah.
So we have built a process over my 12 years of being the ASB advisor at Ording Middle School, and I'm pretty proud of it. Not to sound the trumpets, but I got a good trumpet corps in my school, so I'm going to do it. We have a student group that is a leadership class advisory group, and they each take on a club or a sport, and they have to go set an appointment with the person that they have to go meet with, and they talk with them and interview them about their sport or activity, and what are the needs and what are the wants. And if you had to cut something because we didn't do a good job fundraising this last year, what do we got to cut from our needs, even though they're needs? Like, what if it's a tough budget year? What could we cut from your budget if we had to make some cuts? We come together then as a whole group in a marathon meeting that usually lasts about 2 hours, and we get pop-ins from our principals, stop by usually and say hi and check in on the process, ask how it's going. We have coaches come in. We have advisors come in and say hi as well. Ms. Buckles usually makes an appearance at some point and checks in on how we're doing. And it's a real, everybody takes their turn pleading the case of the group that they're representing. So it might not be that you're a member of Dungeons and Dragons, but it's your job to represent them and to argue for what they need as a group. You may not be a wrestler, but the wrestlers are important in our school. It's a way that kids connect with our school. So any place that a kid finds a home is a very valuable, vital part of our school. And we're gonna try and give them the best that we can while balancing the needs of the whole group. We have 2 specific groups in the room. Usually we have the adults. We have, I mean, they're not voting, but we have our voting members and we have our non-voting members. So our non-voting members are the kids from the class, and our voting members are our ASB officers and our class officers. So they have that kind of final, yes, this is the amount we vote for now. We go through every single group, and then at the end, we do a final reconciliation. And if we're over target, we got to go back and start making cuts because we want to give everybody what they need. But if it's a tough budget year, if the numbers aren't adding up, then we got to go back and we got to revisit, and we look for who has some things that they can cut here and there in order to try and make things meet, and in order to try to create that balance in our budget. Then Mr. Slagle and I have veto power, so we approve, deny as we need to, because we have to put our names on that document too. And then we send it off to Marcy, who is usually very nice and tells me if I forgot a zero or not.
Board, do you have any questions?
Yeah,
or
first,
comments that you'd like to make?
I really appreciate the explanation. This was something that, like, I participated in ASB when I was in school, but things change. And it's something that we really haven't, in the years that I've been on the board, we haven't talked about in this kind of detail. So I really appreciate your expectation or your explanations. And a couple of things that I was really looking for was equity and access to that money among the different groups, you know, teams, and all of the engagement opportunities that I'm so proud that we have. I wanted to make sure that there was kind of a fair playing field for that money, and also student engagement, because I've always felt that ASB is such a vehicle for them to develop their decision making and leadership skills. And so I was hoping that it wasn't just happening in an office, you know, independently from the students. So anyway, I heard what I was hoping to hear, and thank you.
And I wanted to say thank you for your long day, teachers. I know that this is one more thing on top of your busy life. And I really, really appreciated how thoughtful the processes were about making sure that everybody was represented, giving the kids a chance for leadership, giving the kids a chance to understand each other. You know, good explanations and a very thoughtful process. And once again, Marcy, you are just the wizard of the dollars. And I know that ASB rules are very complicated. I know that. And I just thank you for helping the ladies and helping us once again.
Marcy, do you have any thoughts you want to add to the ASB side of things?
Was there a second question they had answered? Did they do both of them? I'm sorry.
how
I
many
don't,
were-
Sarah, I'm sorry. I thought there's a second one, Sarah.
How-
One
well,
of
I think it-
I thought it was the process and how how the people
Yeah,
are
how
involved.
many are involved in prioritizing? I felt like they were kind of, their answer blended the two, but maybe I was wrong.
I do have another question that I just thought of. So if you need to get back to me or something, we've had, we had the end of last year and the beginning of this year where we have not had an opportunity really to do any fundraising that I've seen, unless I missed something. So what happens to these budgets? Like, where's the money going to come from when we do finally get going? And do you need a donation? Like, I so badly want this to continue.
Well, it might be something considered more than a donation. Our high school principal, Cliff, and I had a conversation the other day, and due to the fact that ASB cards are not being sold, and there's a lack of revenue from game receipts and such, from any of the sports that will be offered. Nevertheless, officials will need to be paid, and there's a substantial bill associated with paying officials once the sports seasons are restarted. And so we can expect that the district will be subsidizing to the extent necessary to make sure the programs continue to be officiated appropriately, and we stand ready to support our athletic and activity programs.
That is so good to hear, especially because I know at the middle school, we don't even have gate receipts. That's not something that the middle school gets to rely on at all. So even if we start having sports, that there is no income for us from any game that happens at our middle school. It's a come one, come all, enjoy, have fun, root for the home team. Because if you don't, Miss Robbins is the only one yelling at everyone. And she's very aggressive in her spirit. But the other thing too is we do our fundraiser, because we don't have any gate receipts, we at the middle school fundraise as a school for everything. That's where all of our fundraising comes from. We don't allow individual groups to fundraise because there's no money for the general need of anyone if we don't do that. When you have a 10-person Knowledge Bowl team that you send to 2 days of competitions, the money for the bus has to come from somewhere. So it comes from everybody's dance. It comes from our fantastic and amazingly spirited color run in the fall. And it's not necessarily this year that's going to be scary. It's next year. It's, we worked hard last year and fundraised and are secure for this year, but the next year, if we drain the pot this year, can we sell the pot? That's what we're going to be looking at. So thank you. It's wonderful to hear that, Tony. That really is very
Jessica, thank you, Jessica. But the community reaffirmed their commitment on April 28th in passing the levy. And so we owe it to the voters in Ording who continue to support our athletic and activity programs. So my hat's off to them as well.
So on the point of, go ahead, Sarah, please.
I was just going to say, I would like to add that I think it's very, it feels very good to hear that there are people that are in this realm, right, that are seeing that there is this fear and this concern and that the effort and the energy is still there. I have a leadership class and a group of class officers and executive officers that are still saying, what are we going to do? How are we going to create community and keep spirit up while we're not there? And they're working behind the scenes trying to create activities that we somehow get to kids that we can put on virtually for them. And the big challenges is that we have a small school, but we have a school that knows, right? Like they rely on these activities and this community and this opportunity to make themselves something, right? Like their identity, even if they don't ever want to admit it when they're actually in high school, right? Their identity is so closely tied to what they do with their peers, with their school, with their sports, their clubs, or even if they're not officially in any of those activities as a member, there's always the memories of them. There's always the connection, the relation to it. And it's hard as an advisor to listen to them, want to find ways to ensure and guarantee that connection, because that it shows that need right? And so that is the biggest fear right now, because Jessica hit the nail on the head. We are at the point that we're looking at the bottom of our pot, and we don't even know how we're going to begin to operate at the beginning of next year. But the kids are already creating plans and lists and coming up with ways that they can do something to support not just the clubs, but the sports and all those other avenues. And it's encouraging and it's uplifting, and it's something that's definitely needed right now. And I wish that you guys could see this behind the scenes work that they're doing in these leadership classes, creating mission statements and finding ways to live up to those statements and make sure that there's something for everybody. So thank you.
Yeah. To Carrie's point on equity, and then also the financial side of things, Marcy is going to speak just for, there's been a new guideline that's been laid down that Marcy wants to speak to for just a second.
Now?
Yes, you do.
Oh, good. Okay. So unfortunately, there's a very well-meaning legislature, and I don't want to present it badly, but he was apparently a coach in the Renton area, and he felt very, very strongly about this, and it passed. And so we now have House Bill 1660, which affects ASB. And what House Bill 1660 does to ASB is actually, it's in your the first read tonight, where some of the effects on it, Board Policy 3510 and Procedure 3510 are a direct reflection of part of the things that are going through with 1660. And what you may not realize is that, so what that means, what that language means is that our any kid in our district that's free and reduced, if they sign a waiver form and allow us access to know that they're free and reduced, will not pay for an ASB card, will not pay any fees associated with any clubs and or activities, and we will have to subsidize those students elsewhere. So our ASB cards, that is a major source of revenue for both of our schools, these kiddos will not need to pay that. We can't ask them to pay it if their family has signed this waiver form and gives us access to know that they're free and reduced. If we charged fees for playing sports, these kids would have to have them waivered. If there's a fee for, say, National Honor Society has a fee, every kid pays it. I think it's $10 dues that goes to the governing source of National Honor Society. I think they don't pay that either. So all of these fees must be waived. So it's going to create an additional strain on the ASBs on top of what they're dealing with this year's issues. And it's an ongoing thing. And like I said, he's a well-meaning person. He wants to make sure that free and reduced students are not left out of being able to participate, which is completely 100% understandable. It's just his answer is that you fundraise more. And I can't say in Orting that we have the ability to just fundraise more. It's a hard thing to sell. We're a small town, and there's only so many people who can buy gold cards. So that's something that we're also going to have to deal with.
I support the elimination of barriers that prevent kids from participation. And I know that this board and the educators in this community strongly believe that as well. So we're going to have to think about a workaround over time on how we can make up for that. But I just love the idea that this legislation has moved forward.
When we get to possibly looking at budgets again, then when we talk about that, I would be interested to kind of know what that percentage might be so that we can have an idea of what the gap is that we might need to fill.
So
Great.
One of the requirements of the House Bill 1660 is a reporting requirement that is already on our district website. So under Departments Business Services ASB, we are required, this was our second year, but we were required to report on extracurricular activities. And it's called the Extracurricular Activity Report, if you feel like going and looking at it. And what it has is our information for just our high school for the 18-19 school year for number of and this is really, it's more directed towards sports than it is activities. But it says how many high school students are eligible to participate in free and reduced. So that's the first line. How much is the ASB cards for the high school? And this is high school driven, although I feel like at some point they're going to get to the middle school level. They haven't yet. The discounted price of ASB cards for eligible students. Right now, we don't have a discounted price. We will. Athletic program fees. Right now, we're one of the districts in the state that still does not charge any athletic program fees. We are not a pay-to-play school, so that's zero on us. So the discounted athletic fee is also zero on this. And then it asks how many high school students possess an ASB card, how many high school students eligible for free and reduced possess an ASB card, how many high school students participated in an athletic program, and then how many high school students participating in an athletic program are eligible for free and reduced. So that information is already on our website for our high school only. It was due for the 18-19 school year. Last year, it went through, because of our quick stop last year, it's good through about our winter sports at the high school, but not necessarily our spring. So that is something that we do already have the data, at least partial data on. So,
Well, thank you for telling me where I can go find it.
yeah.
If any other questions for Jessica or Sarah before we move to athletics?
Nope, just my perennial ask, and I know the board shares this thought with me, but please let us know what you've got planned. If you've got fundraisers planned or something going on with students that we could support, we're always willing. So
I was going to bring that up because you brought it up so many times, Carrie. But I was going to give you credit. I was going to quote you.
Thanks.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking for people to host a lunchroom for kids on Fridays. So if anyone wants to host a lunchroom for a group of kids to be able to get together and talk to each other and actually just socialize with people they don't get to see on the regular, I will be looking for volunteers soon. So
Okay.
I will forward my email to you guys.
Make
You
sure
can
you
pencil
do it
me in
as
for that.
well.
Well, now I feel bad for her humble request, because here's where I tell you that the high school is, thanks, Jessica. The high school is dead set and they're willing to modify it, but they are dead set on keeping with tradition with winter wishes. But they have agreed to modify to focus on the giving process of this. And it's going to have to be, it's going to be a huge undertaking for them, right? And we're going to have to really work with what we can in terms of how we can do this. But they want to see it remain alive. And so we don't know what that's going to mean, how that's going to look, what we can do in general with it. But I think that now more than ever, we have to recognize that there are probably more kids that are losing a lot of access to standard resources that they would typically have just in that school setting. And we would really like to make sure that we're focusing on that. Like, we talk a lot about the difference between need versus want and how it's okay to have a want, but we really want to honor those needs as much as we can this year. And so if you start seeing those random emails coming through and they're all panicky with a lot of exclamation points, you're welcome. And so we'll do our best to try to keep it narrowed down to that scope of recognizing that need versus want, but also really wanting to give all these students something that they really need this year again, which is just some form of that, that familiarity of an action. And they love that feeling of being able to connect and have that community opportunity. So it'll be there. It's not a lunchroom on a Friday. I'm so sorry, but we have big eyes and big stomachs, and they want to do it all, and I really celebrate them for that, even if it scares me sometimes. So
yeah. Well, I know you guys put together a list of what kids want. So please share it with us in case we can help out.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica and Sarah. So let's move to athletics. We have 3 questions relative to athletics for Karin and Marty. What is WIAA was one of the questions. How are students benefiting from our athletics, and is it gender equitable? So we'll get perspective on that from both the high school as well as the middle school. And then the last question would be one where we probably have a little bit more of a discussion on, do we have a district athletic council? So if Marty and Karin, if you want to kind of tackle those first 2, and then we'll pick that last question just up for a little bit of a discussion. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Let me see if I could share a screen here. Hang on, I'm going to attempt this. Let's see if I can come back here and hit.
Athletic director and technology too.
Yeah, we'll see.
Marty, I know you like to swear at it. That helps.
Yeah, it might help. Karin, did it make it on to, is it there yet, Karin?
Not yet.
Huh. Okay. Karin, you want to try it? You want to go ahead and try to share your screen?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I'll kind of cover the idea of, you're probably going to learn more than you want to learn, but I'll try to move along quickly. So the structure is similar for the middle school, but I'll go ahead and tackle the high school. The first thing that we're a part of is our league. So we have a nine-member league in the South Puget Sound League 2A. 2A refers to the number of students in grades 10 through 12, and we fall in the 2A division between 450 and 900 students. So they're the members of our league. Typically, depending on how the league's doing, we might make league fees. This year we voted not to because we have enough money carried over from the years past to survive. A lot of obviously our league and how we qualify teams to the district, all are decided at that level, at the league level, the SPSL 2A. Then we're part of, there are 9 districts in the state of Washington. We belong to the West Central District, District 3, and that is the largest district in the state with well over 115 high schools, a huge district compared to a little one over in Northeast Washington. So the West Central District, I was on a Zoom meeting today with all of them. They set a lot of our calendar and district playoff games that seed you or qualify you for state events. So that's kind of the role of the West Central District. And yes, they have fees, but we also have a reimbursement procedure that if you go to state and our West Central District ends up making money, we do, maybe not a lot, but then they share that. We disperse the dollars among members of the West Central District. So every August we get a check and then we turn that back over to the school district because our school district has an account for what's it, Marcy, is it just called state? Is that what when we send the fast pitch team to Yakima for state or to SELA, those funds are covered. So when we get any reimbursement, we just in turn give that back to the school district. So that's been a great help. Now, the WIAA, that is our state member organization. Every high school in our state that wants to participate in any athletics, they must belong to WIAA. In fact, if there was a lone school sitting out there in Bremerton, we would not be allowed to play them if they were not a WIAA member school. So WIAA has a lot of clout in how we do things. The WIAA handbook, the rules of how our state operates, and students transferring and any disciplinary action is all, we rely on the WIAA handbook with all rules and regulations. So that's a big part of what they do. We have appeals boards. If somebody needs to go and they disagree with a ruling from our school district or the West Central District, Eventually, you work your way up to the state office, and they hear appeal for a variety of reasons that a student might be ruled ineligible, always based on hardship. If they can prove to the committee that they have faced a hardship or something outside of their control, then they have a chance of passing and making it. We had a student get an extra year of high school. Well, he lived in downtown Orting and his home burnt down. This is a long time ago. By the time we got in to present, everybody understood, hey, we get it. This kid can stick around for another semester, and he wanted to play football, so he was deemed, ruled eligible. So that's kind of the structure of our organization. We are in the process of paying $3,500 to the WIAA. That's for our membership fees, dues, and they cover all L&I for every official that works our contests. That's where the bulk of that $3,500 go. So L&I insures every official, and cost of that falls back on the individual high schools. It's not real fun to come into September and see that bill sitting there for you, but it's what we have to do to be involved. Okay, there was a question about equity, and I thought the ASB folks did a nice job on it. I just wanted to real quick mention what happens each spring. OSPI gives us these categories that we need to look at each year. So I'll bring a group of, I'll bring Gary Ann Fry, volleyball coach, Tyler Pauley, the fast pitch coach, Ray Williams, our girls basketball coach. I'll bring in some female coaches or coaches that coach females. And we sit down, and these are the areas that we've been asked to review every year. Scheduling, is it equitable? Or does it favor one group over another? Equipment, uniforms, supplies. Whatever we give girls soccer this year, it won't be a lot because we don't have any money, but let's say we gave them $500. Well, if girls soccer got $500, boys soccer will get $500. If we were going to give baseball $700, fast pitch would be allocated $700. So that's an important area. And I ask the coaches, we sit down and just say, hey, do we see any inequity between male, female sports and what we have? So our district has been really good. Our coaches get it. And we've done a nice job when we fenced in the baseball field. Guess what we did? We fenced in the fast pitch field. So those are just things we do to stay equitable among the sexes. Facilities, practice facilities, game facilities. Coaching, do we give the boys basketball team 4 coaches and the girls 2? No, we stay equitable. It's the same. Publicity and awards remain the same. Medical training, that's kind of a new one over the last 4 or 5 years that OSPI asks us to evaluate. So we look at that, at the medical training support, and then travel. Are we equitable with where we send teams and the needs that each team would have? Yeah, so that's part of equity. Then every 3 years, we do a participation survey. Sorry, I'm jumping to interest survey. So we do the OSPI review every year, and then every 3 years, they take an interest survey, school-wide. And we've been fortunate to get that on to, I don't know what it's called. We used to be on SurveyMonkey, but now we do it through Google. It's awesome. And we have all the high school kids take it, all the middle school kids take it. And we review what are the needs, what are kids longing for that we're not offering. Of course, in Orting, it ends up with tennis and swimming. And okay, we can go down to the Carbon River, I guess, but We don't have a lot of tennis players or swimmers. So that's kind of out of the question. But there are some things that have come up, like bowling, badminton. There's some offerings that we could do. And as you look at the participation data, that's where the high school is struggling. And we are out of compliance with the Office of Civil Rights out of Bellevue. We do not meet proportionality. Substantial proportionality is the exact words that we would hear from the state. And they want those numbers between males and females to be, if we have 52% males in the high school, we should have 52% male participation and 48% female participation. Now, just so you guys have an understanding of Title IX, just a little bit, they don't care how many sports you offer. This is not saying we have to have equal offerings. They want to know participation. So it's very crucial that we work on these numbers. They will not let us count cheerleading. And I have fought with them to try to have them accept dance, but that's been a tough go. They just don't want to. But those are competitive teams. So anyway, we have some work to do as far as our proportionality. Okay, on the back, and there's some great studies. I'll try to remember to send something from WIAA. It's kind of a PowerPoint that they have called Why Athletics. Well, here's all the research, and there's been a lot of it done. Athletes that participate in one or more. Now, I don't want to just say athletics because they also include band, choir. So really, most of these surveys are athletics and activities. What have they found about those students that are involved? Well, they get better grades. Their GPAs are higher. They have higher standardized test scores than the general population. They have a higher attendance level than the general population. You will find their social emotional health and wellness tends to be higher because of their connection with their peers and with their school. Better life skills and relationship building skills that carry into their future after they leave us. They have a higher statistical chance of moving on to higher education. The athletes do. And then the bottom one, which I always talk to parents about, better structure or discipline in their time management and what they do. I talk to a dad, and he's upset with his son. That's it. My kid is not getting it done in the classroom. I'm yanking him from the football team. And I'll calmly say, hey, Dad, that's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. We have 7, 8 football coaches that want to invest in your son and help him with his academics and structure his time that he can be successful. Removing him from the very positive aspects of athletics is never a good idea. So why athletics? All of these, and there's so many more, but this is just something from the WIAA PowerPoint that they have on their website. So, okay, Karen, are we okay there for now?
Sure thing. Marty covered most of what answered your questions, other than a few specific middle school pieces. So I just have a couple slides for you to kind of point out the middle school difference. We do have a league just like the high school does. We are very fortunate that our league is very centralized to our location. We participate with the 3 Sumner schools, the 2 schools in Enumclaw, Glacier up in White River, and then out in Fife, they have a different school structure than the rest of us, where they have a 6-7 middle school and then an 8-9 junior high. So their 7th graders and their 8th graders combine together and function as one school, and that makes up our 8th team. So we do have 8 schools that function as the Plateau League. We meet monthly as a group of athletic coordinators. We are overseen by Tim Thompson from the Sumner School District, who basically does a lot of the leadership role of that division. As far as sports go, just in case any of you didn't know what we do offer at the middle school, and I know there's a lot on here, but we are broken into 4 sports seasons in a typical year. And again, this is based off normal, not this year. We don't know what will happen this year for sure. And something new that happened just in the last year or two was the addition of 6th graders being able to participate in additional sports. So if it has a star next to it, it's a sport that last year we allowed 6th graders to participate in. The league actually allowed 6th graders to participate in a couple of additional sports, but we did not do that at OMS, mostly due to facilities and having enough space to put all the kids. The other thing to make note of on here is we do have 2 sports that are offered in our league that just started 3 years ago. And at that time, Orting School District made the choice to not add those sports. There's a lot of push to encourage us to add them still. But of course, finances are tough, as we know. So the rest of the league does offer boys soccer as well as girls cross country. And I made a note of that because if we get sports this year, you might get some feedback as the school board. Because the schedule that they've come up with, the first season that we would have would be boys soccer would be the only sport offered during the very first season. Because normally boys soccer is offered when wrestling happens. And we do know that we can't start wrestling in January. The numbers wouldn't allow it. And so that left boys soccer as the only sport. And so I'm just throwing it out here as a heads up for you because I know you end up being the recipients of the emails from the community, and that might be one that you would hear about that the rest of the league had soccer and we didn't. So just wanted to put that one out there. Probably the best news.
Can I interrupt? Do we have student interest in boys soccer and cross country enough to put together a team?
Absolutely. I know there's actually been Dave could probably speak to some of the soccer parents that I know have been pretty vocal in sending letters and reaching out, trying to have the addition of the soccer team. I don't know that the cross country numbers would be as good as the soccer numbers, but one thing that would help is that if you included 6th grade girls in cross country, it would be the only sport that 6th graders could play that season. And so I think that would get their numbers higher since we don't have room to have the 6th grade girls on the volleyball team. The other district, the school teams in our league are averaging 30 to 40 boys on their soccer programs and about 20 girls in their cross country programs.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did it right.
So one last thing, and this is probably the one place where we, the middle school, get to shine over the high school for once. It always seems like they get to outshine us. And that is our equity numbers. There is something about middle school where we managed to get our girls out for our programs. And so while if you just look at the numbers, you might say, ooh, the boys won by 5. They actually didn't if you look at the proportions because we have 36 more male students last year. So if you actually did the proportions, the girls, a higher percentage of them actually participated. So the WIAA liked the numbers that we turned in for our program. And our numbers also would support being able to add the soccer team because our girl numbers are high enough to keep those numbers, I think, within proportion, even if we were to add that. So athletics are such a vital part at the middle school. We, as Marty showed in his slide, one of my main jobs as the athletic director is dealing with grade checks because we have a very stringent grade policy at the middle school and we run grade checks every 2 weeks. And our number of kids who are able to stay engaged in the classroom and behaving, our coaches are so good about putting emails out to staff and saying, let me know who's not doing what they should and holding them accountable at practice. It's such a powerful tool that we get to use this at the middle school level. So I think I'm happy to answer questions, but I think those were the only pieces that I needed to add that were middle school specific over what Marty had already shared.
I just wanted to say thank you for the middle school adding the sixth graders and the C teams, and the fact that we did do an OXA contract that was trying to help the ratio, because
Yeah.
I think pushing the girls when they're younger and providing them the opportunities will help the high school later, because those girls will have had that positive experience. So I'm hoping that that those girls will feel positive about being an athlete is easier to transfer in the middle school, I think, than girls who haven't done sports before and they're suddenly in high school and, oh, is that cool, you know? So I know from raising a daughter that was an athlete that it's really important that they see themselves that way as they're growing up. So I think it will make a big difference that we made that change at the middle school.
On this last question relative to a district athletic council, what I'd like to do is just invite the any board member to kind of just put that out on the table as a part of just kind of to ask your question on that in terms of I know that was a part of a conversation that we had a while ago. It was in a different context. It was really involved in how are we getting our community and people involved in all aspects of our program, and the athletic program was one of them. So we've got both of these representatives here to speak to that, but would one of you would like to kind of frame the idea for us?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Carrie. I was going to say, I don't know if I can frame it, but I have a lot of ideas.
I frame it and then you throw your ideas out. So this concept came up. We were talking about ASB and athletics, and Tony threw out, well, do you have a council? And we're like, a what? And the more we talked about having an athletic council, there just seemed to be like so many positives that could benefit our whole community. Like, for one, selfishly, the board's always looking for farm team leaders, so people in the community who could get involved in the schools, who then want to kind of step up their participation and eventually be a board member. So that was one of the things that stood out to me. I also am always looking for ways to bring the community into our schools and to give them an opportunity to learn about what we do and the services we provide our students and all the benefits of this. So those were just a couple of I don't want to go into all of it, but it was just an idea that we thought maybe it would serve our staff, Marty and Karen, maybe there'd be a way that you could leverage this council. And anyway, Melissa, I'll let you go next.
Well, I was just taking off from what you were just saying. And as Marty was speaking, I was just kind of struck by the disparity in between the boy participants versus the girl participants. And my daughter was a 3-sport athlete until she got hurt. Then she was a 2-sport athlete. And I remember when she started basketball, her first year, I don't think they even got a JV team, or maybe it was her second year in basketball. And there's something about girls, whatever goes on in their mind, that they don't want to put themselves out there. But besides that, this committee that we could get together, many voices, many hands make light work. And if we could get people on board trying to help build something that really gets girls more engaged in the process, that puts them out there not to be afraid of being ridiculed for taking a wrong shot. And I'm speaking from very specific information here, but there has to be something that a group of people can do better than 1 or 2 leaders in the school. And having that support in the community, I think, would be so beneficial to both you, Karen, and Marty as leaders in your positions, but to the student athletes that are there at the middle school and then high school. And what voices can we take that would demand that we recognize cheer as a sport, for God's sakes?
Right.
Why is that not? And dance as well. Those are activities that girls are excited to be a part of and boys can participate in as well. So more voices, more action from community leaders taking on and helping support those roles, and maybe facilitating some excellent change with the whole entire program.
Yeah, I
Steve,
wanted
do you
to
mind if
add,
I?
I wanted
Go.
to add, one of the powerhouses in our district has been, football and wrestling, because it is a community push. There's community organizations, there's school organizations, and having a community advisory committee, I think, would help maybe build some of those ties for some of the other organizations. I mean, for one example is, the other year, Bridget did the first special ed Olympics, and if we had more involvement with the community where we could connect on those things, we could be reaching out in a lot of different ways. And yes, it would also help us in our standing in the community, but I think it will also help us provide better programs for the kids, because we'll have more voices involved.
Yeah.
Well, Stanley, do you mind if I speak to this one?
Go ahead.
So this was something that has really bothered me for a few years. I coached here for my first 15 years here. I coached multiple sports. Many of them were the girls' athletics. And we haven't really had parent voice or community voice in a town that's ripe for it in athletics. People would think Orting is that kind of town that has a strong booster organization, and we've never had one. We had individual coaches that kind of ran a booster. If I'm being completely honest, I think they were illegal in the way they did it, but it was well-meaning. Have a separate account and a mom that helped you, just to kind of somehow get funds available and some grassroots. So over the past 5 years, we have coalesced all of the athletics. Last year, for the first time ever, every single sport being represented, we have a booster club in Orting that is official. It's under one 501c3. They meet. There's 2 representatives from every single sport. They all have separate bank accounts. They're overseen. I attend. The coaches attend. We're not voting members. But we have a very fledgling group that I think could be leveraged here in this town, which is an organized booster. That's something that's never been in this town, and I think that might be the organization you're speaking to. I know it's not directed by the board, but it does have in board policy that we're allowed to have one organization that is a booster that's officially recognized. So that is the officially recognized board, and the board 2 years ago, I believe it was 2, Marcy could correct me, it might have been 3 years ago, even made a board policy that they get different rates and they get privileged access to our facilities, so that we can make sure that our local community and our local kids are taking are getting advantage of our facilities and our use. So that has just started, and it's just beginning, but I think you'll see a change there, especially for girls. Other than football, the 2 most attended events last year were our girls volleyball team and our high school basketball team. For the first time ever, our high school girls basketball team, I believe it was against Eatonville, we packed the house, which I have never seen in my 20 years here. It was amazing. So I think that booster club is already kind of leveraging its power for girls athletics. And I think if we could throw our support in this town around that booster organization, I think we'll see the benefits that you guys are speaking to.
Yeah, and what we have that is helpful with that booster is every sport has a representative. So if we were looking at what would we need to have a community council of folks coming together, other than just individuals here and there, really going through our boosters is a nice place to start. It doesn't have to cover all fundraising. Maybe it's about spirit nights, and we're going to do Hawaiian dress up night at the Clover Park game. Whatever, but to draw from those community members and get them behind our athletics could be really powerful.
I'm really excited to hear, Cliff, that that booster club has taken off from more than a one sport pony, I guess, to the multiple sports representing the entire student body. So that's a very exciting thing in and of itself. And I think you're right. Pulling from them, at least starting this process, is a great idea.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. You know, Tony was going to share some other athletic council information with us from other districts. Tony, you had mentioned you might be able to get some of that. So I'd be curious to see what the difference is between an athletic council and a booster, and what role it has, and how it serves the district in different ways. But
yeah,
the booster club.
There are several models that exist, Carrie, as you noted, and we can take a look at that. The board can examine it. You don't want to take any energy away from the existing booster clubs, of course. However, there may be some possibilities that the board wishes to expand to have an athletic activities advisory council of some sort. But they really can, along with boosters, they can change the course of a community's efforts to improve facilities for our athletic and activity programs. So they can make a huge difference if the district someday looks to expand its athletic facilities through a bond measure. And groups of people can be very powerful and influential.
If there are no other questions or comments from the board for our staff that have joined us tonight. Go ahead, Joe. Thank you. Yeah.
Just for my fellow board members, in case you Google and click too quickly, there are two different organizations that are WIAA. There is the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association and the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletics Association. When you click on that one, you're looking at stuff in lacrosse, and you can't even figure out where that is in the state.
Still happens to me every now and then. Phone or something.
Well, I wanted to make sure that I thank Marty and Karn for adding to their long day and sharing this information with us, just like the ASB people did. And it's really helped me to see a bigger picture. I especially appreciate all the information on equity because, you know, I can still hear Joe Kilby saying, if the boys get it, the girls get it.
Wasn't he a good advocate for his girls?
Yeah.
Well, we do appreciate your time at the end of your day. We really thank you for coming, and you're welcome to stay and participate in the as an observer for the rest of the board meeting if you like. But I know it's been a long day for our teachers and our principals, so we thank you for your participation and the great information. We're really proud of you. Thank you so much for your help.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, athletic directors. Thank you very much.
All right. We'll move on to board comments.
I just had one comment to kind of follow up today's communication that went out. And I just wanted to say, I know that I replied to that individually to Tony today, but I just really feel like it was perfectly timed communication, explaining the thought process of why the whole AM and then an afternoon, a whole AM PM thing instead of 2 days here and 2 days there. And some of our communication in the past has gone out with, this is what's being done, but not giving the whys to it. And I loved today seeing that why, the thought that goes into it, the committee and everything. It was just perfectly done. And I just wanted to say thank you again and just acknowledge that out loud.
Well, thank you, Melissa. It was a real team effort, and a lot of voices were involved in that piece that was sent to the community. Thank you.
I heard Lynn say something today about we were working with secondary principals today on scheduling, and we were talking about the priority of bringing our elementary students back. Lynn, do you want to speak real quick to what you observed and the compliment that you gave? You don't have any audio? Okay. What the structure of the elementary, taking care of our younger students, secondary principals, and we placed a value on that is actually going to drive the direction of the secondary process. And they, as a secondary group, and even the high school administration said that the value that they placed on our younger learners in terms of solidifying their opportunity during this is actually really the sustaining feature in the long run across our system, and that they would adjust to that half-day schedule in terms of what we create for the high school. And Lynn's comment was that she has worked with a lot of high schools and a lot of high school administration, and this is the first time she's seen high school administration defer and not be the tail that wags the dog, but to take care of our younger learners. And it was a very, very informed observation and a comment. And so I wanted to share that, as Tony was saying, our why, when we're communicating our why about what we're doing, that's part of what's happening here, is people are really grounding our values in. And as you've seen, Tony as a very courageous superintendent in the midst of a lot of variety of different opinions that are out there. His why is what really drives that. And I think that's reflected in the thinking of the building leaders as well. And so I think we're in a really good spot. We may not be in the most popular spot sometimes, but we can say what our why is.
I was just wondering if perhaps we should mention more about not being the first to do it, in that we see a lot of school districts jumped into coming back right away, and then like within a week, a few days, some of them had to go, nope, can't do it, and how tough that is on the little kids, to be there one day. Oh, nope, we're closed down again. Yeah, I think it's better to be safe and consistent, is my own feeling, because little kids thrive on consistency.
Well, just today, Puyallup decided to postpone the reopening.
Yes, I saw that.
Tony sent an email, right? Tony sent an email out that said that the Tacoma Pierce County Health asked people to delay, and to the people who had already come back to go remote again based on the spike in cases, right? You sent that email out today, right, Tony?
Yes,
I did.
Yeah.
And so my basic comment on that is, being first sounds good on paper.
Yeah, it does.
It sounds good on the day that you're first. But the day that you have to move backwards, it doesn't feel as good. And so I do want to say that the wisdom to take a wait and see approach, especially when the leadership we've seen from on high has not been smooth and consistent. I think it's better to wait until we know we can send them back and leave them back than to yo-yo kids.
Definitely.
It's also so much kinder to our staff. I mean, I couldn't even imagine being a teacher that is one day doing it remote, then you're back. I mean, that would just drive me insane.
And families as well, as they're making adjustment for one situation, and then all of a sudden they've got to pivot and do something else. All of these things have been factored into what we've been thinking about. So
good. Excellent.
That's a good idea, because they could be getting ready to go back to school, made all the changes that had to be made. All of a sudden, sorry, you got to come back. And like, whoa, I just released my babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
Have any other questions?
Tony, maybe we should bring that up on next Tuesday, talking about the consistency. We're concerned about the consistency for the staff and the community.
Yes, we intend to share some details that you know, you just can't possibly communicate all the emotions that enter into a decision of why we do what we're doing. And of course, Kathy, we hope to have that conversation and sprinkle it with some things that we discussed backstage that other individuals don't know about. And but we have truly a committed, passionate group of people who are exercising every bit of their intelligence to make some good decisions here that are going to help kids and help families. And again, we're working with the public, and as you know, we can't keep everyone happy. But darn it, we're going to do the very best we can do in a pandemic where people are losing their lives. And we don't want to play ping pong with our students and our staff and our families to go back and forth. It's not fair to them, and it's not working smart.
That is definitely correct.
And I think bringing it up at the task force would be good because the members, especially community members, have been really good about being advocates and sharing information with the community. And I think that's really helped us a lot.
Right. Thank you, Kathy, for the reminder. We will do.
Okay, seeing that we have any other questions? Any other questions? Nope. We're going to join the meeting at 7:22 p.m. You guys have a great night. God bless and be safe.
All right.
Good night,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.